All righty. Welcome everybody to epicrei.tv. I'm going to be joined today by my good friend, Mr. Lease Option himself, Mr. Joe McCall, and we're going to talk about finding deals in tough markets, and we're going to talk about what's working with creative real estate investing right now. And while we're waiting for Joe, before we begin, mark your calendars for October 14th through the 16th as we're bringing back the Epic Intensive live here in Las Vegas, as we're going to be spending 3 days together diving deep into creative cash flow strategies, specifically on how to create passive streams of income in creative ways using very little to none of your own money. So information to be up very soon, if it's not already, at epicintensive.com. But mark your calendars at the very least, October 14th through the 16th. And I really hope that you can make it. And looks like he's just chiming in right about now. So I'm going to switch this over, add Joe to the stream, and boom, there he is, just in time. Welcome to the show, Joe. Good to see you.
I'm
good as always.
A minute or two late. My apologies.
Yeah. Have you seen the movie, The 5 Heartbeats?
I've heard of it. No.
Okay. The opening scene is that the band is playing, and the band has already started, and the lead singer is like across town. And so they just show him making this giant, this mad dash across the town, through the cabs, under the bridges, over the fences and everything. And it slides right onto the stage just as his cue to sing. And there you are. Yeah, right?
Hey, how are your Dodgers doing, by the way?
You know what? I haven't looked at the scores recently. I've been very busy. And the other thing here is I've got 2 TVs that have blown out in my house. So I haven't seen TV in about 10 days.
I'm looking at the wild card standings right now. They're in the lead in the wild card. But my Cardinals, my St. Louis Cardinals, are 2.5 games out.
Who's in first place in our division? Padres?
I'll tell you in just a second. I was just there. The Giants, of course.
Oh,
but you're only a half game behind them, so it's like, yeah, the Giants always find a way to choke last minute.
God willing, from your mouth to God's ears, for sure.
Yeah, I should have worn my Cardinals hat today.
I know that would have been great, but you're not a real fan, so
come on,
that's kind of how it works. Anyway, bring me up to speed, Joe. What's new and exciting in your world?
I love creative financing. We've talked about it a lot, and it's something that I cut my teeth with creative financing. Well, actually, I was doing wholesaling deals, and I was doing what you were supposed to do, man. I was sending the postcards to the same postcards that people were sending to the same lists that everybody was sending to.
Right.
And this was way back in 2008. And it's funny too, because even back then, people were always complaining about the competition and it's hard. And, why would a seller ever want to sell their property to you when all they need to do is stick a sign in the yard? Or why would a tenant buyer, why would a buyer ever want to buy a property from you when they can find all the kinds of deals they want on the MLS? So there's always an excuse like that, no matter what direction. But I remember sending the same postcards to the same list that everybody else was sending to. And I got tired of throwing away leads that didn't have any equity, which is what most wholesalers do. Now, we still wholesale deals. I'm not knocking wholesaling, but most investors will throw away a lead if it doesn't have any equity. If it doesn't fit into this little box, well, there's nothing I can do with it. And I started just asking, well, what if I could maybe offer a lease option on those properties? Or what if instead of doing the whole deal from beginning to end, I'd rather make a quick nickel than a slow dime. And this is when I was going through a place where I was losing a lot of homes to foreclosures and short sales because of the crash. And so I thought, I don't want to own another deed again at the time. And I was thinking, so I started flipping the lease options. I didn't want to stay in the middle. I wanted to make a quick nickel instead of a slow dime. So I would just get it under a lease option contract. And then I would flip that contract to a tenant buyer who lived in the house. And I started doing those deals left and right. And so my point in all of that is this: the markets shift and every market is different. And there's strategies that work really well in certain markets in certain times in the economy and all that. And so our job as investors is to be like transaction engineers. And it's really important to investors today to succeed in this market. Know how to make multiple offers to sellers. Know how to, when the seller needs a cash offer, make a good cash offer. If they need payments, if it's more important to them to drag it out, if it's more important to them to lease it or own or finance it to somebody who's going to take care of it, they don't have to worry about management headaches. So you now have strategies that you can offer to sellers and give to them. It's not a one size fits all. You can make money doing one size fits all, but how much more money could you make instead of going from 1 out of 30 offers accepted to 3 out of 30 offers accepted when you can do creative financing? Right. And so it's people tend to complicate it, but it's always, for me, it's all about asking bigger, better questions. Like, what if I could do this? What if I did that? Really,
that's what I was gonna ask you, because I've got my own process for getting to that part of the conversation and finding out what the seller really does want or what they need. What is your process for getting to that point? I think that's a sticking point of how that is actually introduced, and people kind of fumble the ball at the goal line there.
Yeah, well, it's easy to do, and I always try to just keep it real simple and just ask questions, lots of questions. Listen twice as much as I talk. And so I'm always asking questions to the seller, like, tell me about your situation. What's going on? What would you like to see happen? I love that question. What would you like to see happen? And so try to find out about the house, the situation. What are you going to do after you sell it? Or, you have other rental properties? Or are you trying to get rid of all your properties right now? Or what are you going to do with the money once you get it? Just trying to figure them out. And I also let sellers know pretty early on that I'm an investor and I'm looking for deals. And listen, it's totally cool if you don't like what I have to offer. You can just tell me no and I'll go away. I give them permission to say no, and I'm not chasing them, right? But I set the stage that I'm an investor. I'm looking for a deal, but I have a lot of different ways I can help them. Can I just ask you some questions about your house and about your situation? So I try to dig into why they need to sell. Do they need to sell or want to sell? And really start asking about the house. And so finally, after I get as much information as I can, I ask so many questions, it's almost uncomfortable. But here's the crazy thing. It's uncomfortable to me. Like, sellers like talking about themselves.
Totally.
Right. So, but sometimes you can tell, okay, you've asked enough questions, right? So, but you talk to them, ask some questions. And then I really try to get down to, all right, if you were to sell it today, what's the least you would take for it? What's the lowest you could go? And I ask like that 3 different times. Could you go any lower than that? Sometimes I like to ask, if they say 75 is the least I would take, I would say, is that a fair price for this crazy market? Let me ask you something. You're an investor. You're a smart investor. If you were in my shoes, would you pay $75,000 for this property? And that always throws them for a loop. They're like, I hear a pause and I just shut up. I just listen. So I'm asking them questions. It's just asking, is that a fair price, do you think, for this crazy market? Would you pay, if you were in my shoes, would you pay 75 grand for the deal?
Right.
And I ask them, if I brought a suitcase of cash right now to your door with $50,000 in it, are you telling
Mhm.
me you would not accept it? Right? You wouldn't take $50,000 in cash right now if I brought it in a suitcase. And that's kind of weird. I kind of chuckle with it. Well, anyway, I want to find out their bottom line number. Sometimes sellers won't give it to you, right? And so I try to get it as much as I can. I say, listen, what number would make you happy? Can you give me a price range? You know, what are houses similar to yours selling for in the area? Really try to get where they're at. And if I'm miles apart, and usually that's the case, I say, you know, I don't know if this will work or not. But one of the things I do sometimes is I buy houses creatively with special financing, like owner financing or lease purchase or something like that. Let me ask you something. Again, I don't know if this will work. Totally cool to say no, but if I could get you that price that you want, that 75 grand that you want, would you be willing to wait for it? Would you be willing to take your payments over time?
Mm-hmm.
And I just leave it at that. And then, or I'll say, well, first, the other thing too is I always recommend they just list it with an agent, right? You know, you should probably just list it with an agent. Have you tried that yet? How'd that go? You know, you should, if you want the most for your property, you should probably just hire an agent, clean the house up, fix it up a little bit, and sell it with an agent. That's where you're going to get the most money. Kind of see what they say. If they say, yeah, you know what, you're probably right. Yeah. Great, right? I'm helping the seller. They can never accuse me of taking advantage of them.
Mm-hmm.
And I always tell them I'm not going to be your highest and best offer for a cash. Mm-hmm. Well, then finally I'll get to a point where I'll like, okay, what are you going to do if you can't sell it? Are you going to rent it out? And for me, I do a lot of lease options. And that's one of my favorite questions. I'm trying to gauge what they would say. If they can't sell it, would they rent it? And they might say, you know what, I'm just going to sit on it until I sell it. Well, their motivation is practically zero. That's fine. I'll send them an offer and follow up. If they say, well, you know what, I don't know. Maybe then I'll kind of get into this. I'll ask, I used to be in this thing when I first got started doing lease options where I would sell the lease option concept. But now I try to just ask it with questions. I try to sell it with questions. I say, listen, what if, I don't know if this will work, but what if I could lease your property for a little bit, take care of all the maintenance and vacancies? You don't have to worry about any of that. And then I could buy the house after a couple of years. What would you want to do then? And that's how I pitch the lease option, right? I'm going to lease it for a period of time, take care of everything, and then buy it. What would you want to do then? And that's one of my, I also like to ask, what would you like to do then? Could we do business today? So it's just asking questions. Does that make sense?
Oh, 100%. Yeah. Sounds like we went to a similar school.
Yeah, it is. And you know what it is? It's the Sandler Sales Institute, right?
Totally. 100%.
It's the, if you can't teach your kid to ride a bike in the seminar, then
yeah. That's a great book.
That's the title. Yeah.
Yeah.
You can't even need to open to ride a bike in a seminar.
You can't teach a kid to ride a bike in a seminar, right? I didn't even need to open the book. Like the title said it all. It's like, okay, I get it. Yeah. So really it's just kind of shifting. Most people are, when they're out talking to sellers, they're trying to convince the seller to sell to them.
Yeah.
Whether that's intentional or not, or subconscious, it happens. And that's kind of the position that most investors will take. But really, you need to flip the script and get the buyer to convince you to buy.
Yeah,
right?
That's so important, especially when you're doing creative deals.
Yep.
Because they might think, well, that sounds too good to be true. What's the catch? You're going to give me my asking price? Like, what's the catch? So I'm always asking questions and playing the reluctant buyer, because I want the seller to sell me on why I should want to buy their house. I used to be like this pitch salesman. One of my coaches, Claude Diamond, used to call it premature presentation, where you go into presentation mode and you just pitch like all the benefits of what a lease option is and how it can help you and how it can do this and that and how awesome it is. And I used to do that. And like 20 minutes later, I would go through my thing just talking, and the seller would say, I need to think about it. And really, that's just code for, I want to get off the phone and I'm too nice to tell you no. So I just like to frame it in questions, figure out really what the seller wants. How can I help them fix their problem? Because you can only do deals with motivated sellers, and the seller may not be motivated right now. Chances are they're not, or if they are, they're just hiding it. Sellers are really good at hiding their motivation. They're not going to come out on the first call and tell you all of their problems and woes. The deals for us come
that
from
depends though, right? That depends
if they're
on the
really
seller.
motivated, and those are 1 out of 100, and those are awesome. But there's
Mhm.
guys that only do deals with those 1 out of 100, right?
Right. Right.
We one time, my business partner and I, Gavin, we looked at in the last 12 months all the deals we did. We did, I think it was like 58 deals, and this was a year or two ago. And we said, all right, of those 58 deals, how many of those deals came from that first conversation with the seller? And only 4 of them did.
Mhm.
So if we would not have done any follow-up, we would have only done 4 deals that year. But on
Mhm.
average, it was 5 to 7 touches, 3 to 4 months on average, where those deals come from. Some of them was like just 2 follow-ups. Some of them were over a year of follow-up. But that's
Mhm.
where it's so important to
So
send off those deals.
do you attempt to close on that first call every time?
No,
Right.
I
Yeah.
don't.
Okay. I was just wondering how those 4 came about, because that doesn't even enter the conversation on my first contact.
Well, sometimes it's like, they tell you their price and it's right in the same ballpark of
Mhm.
where you would be.
Right. Right.
That's when you make the appointment or you send your person to the house to
Mhm.
get it under contract.
Mhm.
I'm working right now with a student on a deal.
But even
Um,
then, to that point, before you switch the subject, even to that point, if it's too easy on that first call,
oh
you
yeah, something
gotta
might be
push
wrong.
back a little bit. You still got to
Yeah.
push back a little bit. Like, are you sure? That seems like a great deal for this house. I could stand to make a lot of money on this. Are you sure that's what you want?
We were
Like,
just working on a deal. Yeah,
mhm,
and it also raises red flags for me because we were working on a
mhm,
deal and like the seller agreed to everything, full price. I mean, like what their asking price, 100% owner financing, principal only payments, 20 years.
mhm,
And in fact, they were willing to do $500 principal only payments. It would rent for $1,500. So there's a lot of cash flow in that deal. And
mhm.
I thought, oh my gosh, this sounds amazing. And I red flags those like this shouldn't be that
Yeah,
easy.
yeah,
Look
exactly.
into it, and he's not on title, right? And he said it's free and clear, and there wasn't. There was a mortgage on it from 4 years ago. So
Mhm.
when something's fishy about that, my student is digging into the deal more. But
Sure, sure. So we're talking about the subject for today was to find deals in tough markets, right?
yes,
And my first question is just like, is this a tough market?
it depends on your perspective, isn't it? Um, Again, I've been so I don't know if it's like even me, my perspective changes because I go through phases where I get discouraged and think, oh man, this market's tough. And then all of a sudden, like deals left and right are coming around.
Mhm,
Maybe it's because we're coming into the fall, the end of the summer, as we're recording this right now. But I have a student who got a deal in my backyard here in St. Louis, 63121. You might know where that's at. And it's a house that's worth 50 to 55 grand. He got it under contract for 22. And I got a buyer right now that was willing to pay 28 for it. So he's going to get a $6,000 assignment fee. And, he was wanting to partner with me on it. And this is such a slam dunk. I'm like, no, dude, I just connected him to my buyer and I'm letting them work it out. So he doesn't have to split that wholesale fee with me. Right.
mhm, mhm.
So in fact, I just got a text from the buyer right here. It's a great deal. And how did he find it? Well, he was just in the right place at the right time doing consistent marketing. So I think the key, it's not hard to find deals when you're brilliant at the basics, right? And I wrote a book
Mhm.
about that. When you're brilliant at the basic stuff, which is answering the phones, talking to 5 sellers a day,
Yeah.
sending an offer to every seller you talk to, following up
Returning
with every
voicemails.
returning voicemails.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, people don't do that.
I know it.
And sending an offer to every seller you talk to, following up with every single seller every 30 days. Send them
Mhm.
a new offer every 30 days. Call them, text them, email them,
Yep.
smoke signals, carrier pigeons, FedEx, like whatever. That's those that when you can do that, that's stuff your competition is not doing. And in every market, there's always going to be 5 to 10% of sellers that want to sell that are going to be extremely motivated.
Mhm.
The house is trashed. It's a dead deceased parent. It's a divorce. It's a job loss. That stuff still happens in a hot market, whether it's going up or down. And
Mhm.
if you're good at that stuff, basics, the brilliant at the basic stuff, you're going to find deals. Does that make sense?
Right.
Sometimes, yeah, you could say it's easier in some markets than others.
Mhm.
But if it's easier to find sellers in one market, then it's easy and it's harder to find buyers at the same time.
Right.
So they kind of balance each other's out. What do you think about that?
Well, I brought it up for 2 reasons. First thing is most people think this is a really tough market because they're paying attention to retail news,
Yes.
and us as real estate investors don't really work in the retail too often. I mean, we can if the market shifts, but in a strong seller's market, it can be really tough to find deals there. So I could consider it a tough market as a real estate investor if you're shopping retail, right? Not to say that there's not possibility and potential out there, but it's tougher. The other part, just because of the time that we're in, we're coming out, God willing, out of this pandemic shortly. And, there's a lot of people surprisingly did extremely well. The household net worth surged. People paid down their debt. Credit scores went up. There's a lot of people in much better positions right now than they were before the pandemic, weirdly. But it did leave a bunch of carnage behind as well. And there's a lot of people really hurting. And a lot of those people, perhaps more than normal times, a lot of those people own property. And you had mentioned earlier, you're always looking for the difference between what people are, the sellers that want to sell and the sellers that need to sell. And so I'm just block out the retail stuff and just focus on that. You're looking for people, property owners with problems, and you're the solution provider. You're there to help them out of their situation. They've got bigger fish to fry in their world right now than getting full price using a real estate agent for their house. And I know you got a giveaway for everybody today, and I'll give you the opportunity to let everyone know how to get that. But I was looking through it, and it was really well put together. I really liked what you did.
You're talking about the report I did called my 5 top strategies for finding deals in 2020.
Correct. So you put some good stats in there, and a lot of those stats I was familiar with. I've shared a lot of those stats here on the show, and it really builds a compelling case that this market probably is not going to crash anytime soon. Right. But there was one thing. Hold on.
Okay, go ahead.
Let me finish. I'm getting to that one part of there was one page in there that showed why sellers want to sell.
I was just going to bring that up. Yeah.
Okay, good. We're on the same wavelength. And it was a higher number than we typically factor in of how many people in the market need to sell. That number is actually greater right now.
Yes.
Than most situations or most current normal markets. So go ahead and.
Do you want me to show you the stats?
Sure, you can. Sure.
Share my screen.
Yeah, absolutely. And stick around. Joe will give you a link to where you can go and download this whole PDF for free. But just show them that one page for sure.
I am opening it up. Shoot, where is it? Oh, here it is. All right, can you see my screen? I think you need to share it.
All right. So let's do this, and then we'll do this. Hold on, add to stream. There we go.
Yeah, boom. Okay.
There we go.
So this is a, let me move this thing here. This is from Realtor.com. So the National Association of Realtors do these things of why do you need to, they ask sellers and survey sellers, why do you need to sell your house? And 7% of sellers said, I need the money ASAP. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So here it is, my point. My 5 to 10% of all home sellers are always going to be motivated to sell quickly and with urgency. And 7% said, I need to sell ASAP. Yep. 15% say, I need a less expensive home. What does that mean? They're wanting, they're in too much. Their property is too expensive for them, right?
Yep.
5% said, I bought something in a hurry and it's not right for me. So the others people say, these are motivating reasons why a seller would want to sell a house sooner rather than later. 28% say if someone would handle all the logistics for me of buying and selling the home at the same time, somebody would say, I need to sell quickly because I don't have to prepare my home for the home sale. And 21% would say if I didn't have to have any home showings. So, here's the thing, even in a hot market, people don't want to go through the hassles, even with a realtor. They don't want to go through the hassle of preparing the home to sell, and going through the hassle of showing the home, keeping it clean all the time, leaving when the buyers are coming in. And
but those are much higher numbers than I would have expected to see.
Oh yeah,
and particularly right now, I mean, it might be a sign of the times, or what I kind of touched on earlier. We all kind of suspect and we think we know what everyone's thinking right now. And, and we know people like us, our friends and family, and, we know their situation, but we really don't know what the rest of the world is doing or how everyone else is living out there and what their circumstances are. And I just thought those were really interesting numbers. I mean, if you go back to that and you just added all 3 of those together, Joe, I mean, that's more than half. No, Red, go back up one.
Oh, this one.
Yeah, you take the 28%, the 25%, and the 71%. That's like almost 3/4, right?
Well, I think
Of
what
all
it is
people
like,
in the market that have a level of motivation that's more than just, going through the traditional means.
well, yeah, and I think when they did the survey, they allowed people to make more than one selection,
Hmm.
right? So these
Okay.
were
Well, then that
the
would make
top
sense.
reasons. Um,
But still, that's a good 25% there.
yeah,
Yep. At least,
yeah. So
which is still greater than I would expect.
there's a lot of things, and life still happens even in a hot market, right? You still have hoarders.
Hmm.
I have a friend who just bought a house from a hoarder. Divorces, there's still death, job loss, job transfers. Sellers have 2 mortgage payments. There's tired landlords. I mean, my goodness, have you heard? Just recently, it was in the news that the dog kennels who take dogs have seen a huge increase in dogs coming because of the eviction moratorium being lifted. A lot of tenants are now moving out and they have to get rid of their dogs, which is kind of sad.
Interesting.
But tenants are late, properties are trash. The tenant hasn't paid rent in 14 months, in a year and a half, 2 years. Termites still happen. Fire damage and mold still happens, no
Sure.
matter what, doesn't matter what condition the property is in or what the market's doing. I mean,
Yep.
so the house just needs too much work to get
Essentially,
clean and ready to sell.
yeah, just life is continuing to happen to people,
Yeah.
right? And no one is immune to life's adversities. It's interesting that you just brought up the eviction moratorium because we did a deep dive into those numbers here just recently. And I don't know if that's going to have much impact on the housing market. What do you think?
Well, it's weird. I hear different things, man. I hear people that say eviction moratorium hasn't been a big deal for me and my properties, right? And then I hear stories of other people that especially in the lower income ones, are like, yeah, man, 40% of my tenants have not paid rent in over a year. And how do you survive that? I have no idea what they're doing. So sometimes I see, like, a lot of times if it's in the news, they're probably overreacting, and it's probably, maybe it's already happened. So it's kind of hard to say. Here's the thing: when COVID started, early 2020, right, a year and a half ago, man, I thought we were going to go into a huge recession. I wrote a book called Recession Proof Real Estate Investing, and I thought the market was going to crash. Everybody's predicting doom and gloom, and none of it happened. So I think one thing we can predict is it's impossible to predict what's going to happen in the market. So whether this eviction moratorium has a negative impact or being lifted has a positive impact, I don't know. It's not changing anything that I'm doing. I'm still targeting tired landlords. That's, for years, ever since I started, that's been my favorite list. Tired landlords. There will always be tired landlords that want to sell that can't, or just are tired of having tenants, right? And if you own a lot of rental property, if you're not a tired landlord now, I promise you, you will be on at least one of your properties sometime in the next year, right? Every landlord I've ever talked to has at least that one property they would just love to get rid of. They don't care. They will just give it away at a loss if they could. That makes sense?
Totally. I was trying to point something out here, and the sharing didn't quite work. So I was trying to share my screen here. And yes, I want to share the screen. And then I want to go over to a window. Oh, it's a Chrome tab. There it is. That's what I did wrong. Okay, got it. All right. You see that?
Yeah.
Okay. So is that showing up in the feed? Oh, it is. Okay, there you go.
Yeah. It looks
perfect.
good.
All right. So this is the national, what is the apartment multifamily something housing tracker, rent payment tracker. So they showed August 1st through the 6th of 2021, 80% of rent payments were made. And then in July, 94.9% of rent payments were made. So that's like a big difference, right? And that's kind of what what you might see reported in the news. They take those numbers and run with them. That's like a 15% difference. But if you look down and you look at the weekly results, what's all this right here? This is probably easier to look at. So the full month results. So this red line represents the payments that are made through the 1st through the 6th. And we can look, say, if we just looked at July 2021, so 76.5% of rents were made through the 6th. If we go down to 2020, really no difference, 77%. We go to 2019, no big significant difference there, 79%. But so that's by the 6th of the month. But if you look by the end of the month, we've got 94.9%, so 95% this year, 95.7% last year, and 96.6% the year before that, pre-pandemic.
Yeah. So that's interesting. It's not as big of a drop as you would think you'd hear about in the news.
No, it's essentially the same, because I mean, it goes up and down here, up and down here, up and down there, and there's no correlation to whether this was a pandemic year or not.
Yeah.
And so that's why I asked you the question, do you think this is actually going to impact the housing market? Because, there's 20% of the people that are always late on their payments, right? But 95% of them always come clean and come current with their rent by the end of the month. And that's always the number, whether that's a pandemic or not. And if we look at low-income housing, I've owned a bunch of low-income housing, and I don't own very much of it anymore for that reason alone. And that was 5-6 years before the pandemic.
Yeah, exactly.
You know,
here's the thing. I think the only people that are worried about it are the rookies.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
The people that have been in the business for a long time, the seasoned, gristled veterans in real estate, they've been through so many cycles. They've heard it and seen it before. Nothing's new.
Yeah.
But the fundamentals don't change, right? And for you and me, it's marketing, it's talking to sellers, it's making offers. Those are the fundamentals. It doesn't change. I don't care what's going on in the news, right? I'm still plugging away, still doing my marketing, still talking to sellers, still making offers, still following up. This business is so simple. Let's stop complicating it.
Yep.
Let's stop freaking out about what's going on in the world and the news. And I think we just need to take a pill of calm down and relax and start.
Okay.
Let's make some money. Let's do some deals.
That's great advice. So you've got this great new report that you just released that you're giving away. So tell us a little bit about it and why you put it together and how they can get it.
Yeah, I hear this. Oh, it's so hard to find deals, and I thought, well, you know what? Let's talk about the 5 strategies for finding deals. The things that I'm finding that's working really well for me in the market, in finding deals for me and my students. And so I just kind of walked through some stats of, obviously prices are going up. And you can see all these stats, which is interesting, but you can also skip this if you you may not need convincing. I love this picture from the Wall Street Journal. I don't know if you can see that, but they're showing this house, right? It's open house day, and there's this line of people, and that picture kind of says it all. What we've been seeing for the last year, and you think, man, there's no inventory, there's no price, there's no houses there. But then I walk through in here, okay, a bunch of articles. Reasons why sellers need to sell. Okay. And we're getting to this. We're still doing deals. And here's some market stats. Investors are still buying homes, even in this one of the hottest markets we've ever seen. And these are stats that I got from, I think, listsource.com. And I got some things from the Wall Street Journal here. But these are investor transactions in the last year. Okay. 31.4 of all the transactions in St. Louis in the last year were with investors. In Memphis, 49%. Indianapolis, 21%. Denver, 20%. Nashville, one of the hottest, most difficult markets in the country. 33% of the transactions there were done with investors. San Diego, lower, obviously. It's expensive. But, East Coast, West Coast, in the middle of America, on average, 32 across the nation are investor transactions in the last year. And there are still old listings. So people say all the time, like, man, all you got to do is stick a sign in the yard and your property is going to sell like crazy. You're going to get multiple offers in a day.
Right. Not true.
But why then, if you went to Redfin, and I did some examples here where I went into St. Louis, I looked for homes that have been listed on the market over 60 days. And there were 449 properties on the market over 60 days. And I was excluding real expensive homes and new construction. In San Diego, there was 151 homes on the market. Nashville, there were 135 homes. And this was when I did this report maybe 4 or 5 months ago, right in the spring, when the things were really, really picking up. Even in Nashville, in the hottest market, one of the hottest in the country, tons of people are moving there. There are still 135 homes that have been on the market over 60 days. Denver, 139. Atlanta, 968.
Crazy.
Now, it all depends, and this is on Redfin. Go look it up yourself. It depends on how far in you are zoomed out or not. I tried to remove new construction because sometimes they list new construction homes before they're even built. Dallas had 717. Philadelphia, 1,400. Now, if I'm looking at this, like, I wonder what a good market would be. Maybe I could target Philadelphia. There are a ton of, especially, this is what I love, Matt, about creative financing. What if you targeted all of those homes that have been on the market over 60 days in Philadelphia and sent the owners a letter saying, hey, if I could get you your asking price of $495,000, would you be willing to sell it with owner financing or a lease purchase? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And there's also ways, and I teach this in my stuff, where like you can download these lists from Redfin, upload them to PropStream, and append owner data on these things.
Yep.
So I could take those 1,400 homes and find the 700 of them that are free and clear. And I could send blind owner financing offers to the sellers. They want to sell it because it's actively listed for sale.
Mm-hmm.
And 1/3 of all the homes in the United States are free and clear, which always blows me away whenever I think about that. Like they have no mortgage.
How long ago did you get that? Because I've known that number for a while. I wonder if that's shifted over the last few years.
I got it from a long time ago from the U.S. Census Bureau.
Yeah.
Maybe it's down a little bit. I don't know.
I would think it might be more, but
here's the thing. I pulled a list in my county, St. Louis County.
Mm-hmm.
I found 4,600 homeowners that are over the age of 65, live in the house that they've owned over 30 years, and they own it free and clear.
There you go.
All right.
Yep.
That's huge. You know what that means? That means that's a house where they're going to be moving soon, whether they want to or not. And this is a house that probably has a lot of deferred maintenance, right? They probably have not updated that kitchen in 20, 30 years. It's going to need a lot of work. There's a lot of junk in the house. They're going to have to get rid of it. And that's just my county, 4,600.
Right.
And nobody's targeting those sellers.
It's a great one. I mean, because you just previously showed one of the reasons for selling is to downsize.
Yeah.
There's your downsizers right there.
Mm-hmm.
And they own it free and clear. And as you're in that age bracket, that monthly income is really important to you. And those are ideal situations for creative financing.
Mm-hmm. What are you going to do, Mr. Seller, with the money when I buy your house?
Correct.
Right? Well, I don't stick it in a savings account. Well, how much does that earn you? I'm just curious. You don't have to tell me, but it's probably not much. Well, what if I offered, if they're going to get 1% in a CD or something, what if I offered them 3% on their money?
Don't say 3%. What if I tripled that?
What they would want. Yeah.
What if I tripled that?
Yeah.
It sounds much more enticing.
Right.
Because they're probably not going to get the 1%. That's why you don't want to.
So I will give you I'm just going to tease this, but the rest of the report, I go through my five favorite strategies for finding these deals. And by the way, when somebody gets this report, they're going to get the video of me walking through this and actually showing it.
Sweet.
Because I have a video of me teaching this stuff and showing. But my number one favorite are realtors. Contacting realtors of listed properties. You may think this is crazy, but it's working really, really well right now. So you can contact realtors of properties that just hit the market, but I like to target ones that have been on the market at least 30 days. Because if the market is so hot, there shouldn't be any properties on the market over 30 days. But if there is one, something's wrong. It maybe needs too much work and it's just overpriced, right? So the seller's not motivated yet. What if I contact that seller? What if you could download, by the way, all of the realtors of those properties and send them a simple email that, I have tools that I use where I can send out hundreds of emails at one time without needing to do the, I don't know what you call it.
The double opt-in or something.
The double opt-in or
right.
you don't have to have the unsubscribe link and all. It sends it from my inbox, from my Gmail. Anyway, I say, listen, I'm an investor. I saw your property here at 123 Main Street. I'm just wondering, I'd like to make an offer on it, but it looks like they're maybe asking a little too much for it. How are they negotiable on their price is one thing I might say. I might say something like, and I can have my virtual assistants do this. What if I could offer them whatever in a formula, it's like 75% of list price or 50% of list price. What if I could offer them this? Do you think they would take it? And I might attach a proof of funds letters or something like that. And the other thing I like to do is in my emails, I'll send, if it's a nicer home that doesn't need any work, I won't send a lowball cash offer. If it's a rehab property that needs work, I'll send a lowball cash offer. But if it's a nicer house, I might say something like, if I can get them their price, do you think they would consider something creative like owner financing or lease purchase? And you send that out. It's amazing how many realtors will respond back semi-positive. Like, you know what? Maybe, I don't know. That's a good question. Let me ask them.
Yeah.
And so then you can start the follow-up with that realtor. You can call them up and talk to them. All right. My other favorite source of leads, I want to go down. I don't want to go too far to number 3. Okay, here we go.
Because that's a secret.
Yeah, I'm going to make this the 3 through 5 secret.
Got it.
But dead leads. Oh my gosh. I love dead leads. And I've loved dead leads for a long time. And there's a lot of other investors out there that have done marketing. They're throwing away leads that don't have enough equity, or maybe they're not motivated yet. And those leads are just sitting in a wood pile. And everybody who's doing successful deals, like, they know they should be following up with their old leads, but they're not. Right.
Mhm.
And so I love old leads. And if you're new, find somebody else who's got old leads and say, listen, if you let me follow up with your old leads, I'll keep them in your CRM. Just let me call them and we can split the deal 50-50, I'll use your contracts or whatever. And a lot of other investors themselves have a lot of old leads, right? So just call them, follow up with them, send them a letter. You should be sending a letter every single month to your old leads. And people aren't doing that.
Right.
And, I use FreedomSoft. I love FreedomSoft. There's a real simple way where you can upload old leads and put them into a workflow automation that starts following up with them. So, yeah.
Sweet. All right. So tell them how to get it, Joe. Keep taking remove the suspense.
So I have a website, Do Deals with Joe. And can you see my screen? Oh yeah, you can. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's report. Yes. Okay. Here it is. dodealswithjoe.com/report.
All right. There it is.
dodealswithjoe.com/report. And it takes you here, you put in your email, and I'll send you the report. And it includes the videos and training of me walking through this workbook.
Super job, Joe. It's really, really well done. I was impressed. Yeah, it's nice.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
So it's very generous. So go to dodealswithjoe.com/report and you can grab that. And then, Joe, it's always a pleasure to see you, and see you soon.
Thank you, Matt. Appreciate it. Go Cardinals.
Go Blue. All righty.
Hey, by the way, let's look at this here.
Let's
see here. Here we go.
Oh boy, here you go.
The Dodgers are a half game behind the Giants right now.
Okay. And what are the Cardinals? What's their
they're not doing too good.
Average right now.
We're only 12.5 games behind.
All right.
The stupid Brewers.
515. Oh, we're in 632. We're in a tough division. We're 632 and we're 6th place.
Yeah.
Holy smokes.
I'm not
in 2nd place.
I'm not envious. Now here's the wild card race. Okay. Cardinals, we're fighting there with the Phillies 2.5 games out of the wild card race.
Mm-hmm.
The Dodgers for sure are going to get in the playoffs. Right?
Oh yeah, they're 13 games ahead.
You might be the division leader, but at the worst case, you're going to be in the wild card.
Yeah, there's no one even close for that.
Yep. What's crazy is what I love are the Cubs. They're way down here, and this is interesting, isn't it? The White Sox are doing really well, but the Yankees and I
saw that the Cubs traded Javi Baez. I was a little bit surprised at that one.
Yeah, he's playing with New York Mets right now.
Yep.
And you should go to YouTube and do a search for Javi Baez, because he hit a home run, and the Mets fans are just brutal fans, right?
Right.
So they've been booing the Mets. Well, Javi Baez hit a home run. He's running the bases and he's going like this to the fans.
I saw that.
He's booing the fans. So they're all mad at him, and he's probably not going to come back next year.
While you're there, might as well search Javi Baez highlights too, because he's one of the most remarkable baseball players and talented.
Why do you like him so much?
I just think he's fun to watch. He's amazing. He's amazing in the field. He's amazing at bat. He's just really, really good. Mr. Baseball.
But did you see that video that popped up? Because we're live right now.
Because we're live right now. Yeah, buddy. Anyway, that's going to wrap up the show. Hey, Keith, good to see you. I need to get started doing this, but now how to do it while working overtime on my full-time job, plus working a second day job just to try to catch up from last year. You know what? I mean, time management is an issue for everybody, and we all just choose to do what's most important to us. And, if you have to take care of certain priorities and in order to keep a roof over your head and keep your family fed, or even just yourself fed, you got to do that first, and then just carve out that time on the side to go ahead and engage in the money-making activities and just stay focused on those. Be careful going down the rabbit hole of clicking around and looking at properties and stuff like that.
Well, here's something too. Let me just say it again and repeat.
Sure.
If you don't have any money and you're broke, the best thing you could do is call old leads, your own old leads or other wholesalers, investors, old leads. there's such a huge gold mine there.
Totally.
And get Matt's training on how to talk to sellers, how to ask questions, and learn what to say to them.
Right.
Here's the bottom line. I'm sorry to keep interrupting you. If you're not on the phone, you're not making money.
That's right.
That's it. So get on the phone.
Yep, for sure. All right, Matt, how would you go about finding tired landlords with 2 to 3 rentals who no longer want to landlord due to not receiving rent? Look up absentee owners and cross-reference that with pre-foreclosures or notices of default. And then you can also look up, you can sort those through just county records of how many properties they own. You can do that over at ListSource pretty easily. Joe and Matt got your system, but have problems. Bobby, no problems, right?
Only opportunities.
Only opportunities. Anyway, we're a little bit over time, but we're going to go ahead and wrap this up. We'll be back. We'll do it again for sure, Joe. You'll come back?
Yeah, for sure, man. You'll get you on my show too.
Awesome. So that wraps up this epic show. If you found this episode valuable, who else do you know that might? There's a good chance that you do know somebody else that would. And when their name comes to mind, please share it with them. And then ask them to click the subscribe button. When they get here, I'll take great care of them. All right. So God loves you. So do I. Health, peace, blessings, and success to you. I'm Matt Terrio. That's Joe McCall. Living the dream. Take care.
See you guys.